And I think for a lot of people, we quit really early in the process. And guess what? Even if YouTube doesn't work out, but you stick with it just a little bit longer than you were originally planning to, you might gain so many new skills that can be useful in any other context. But most likely, you will break through what most people can't.
More and more people want the flexibility to work outside of a traditional office setting. If you're interested in owning more of your time, solopreneurship could be the right path for you. On our Real Solopreneur segment today, we're going to interview Denis Trufin. Denis is a solo business owner who specializes in creating content on YouTube. He generates over 500,000 views per month across several channels and was awarded the silver play button from YouTube recently for reaching over 100,000 subscribers. Today, we're going to discuss how he developed his profitable solopreneur business and the steps others can take to grow theirs as well. Welcome to the show, Denis.
Thank you so much for having me, Andy. This is going to be exciting. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Absolutely, man. Well, we've known each other for a while. I really enjoy listening to your show, and I've learned a lot from it personally as a budding YouTuber myself. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you today. Let's talk about your motivation for getting started with your online business in the first place.
Yeah, man. I think like most people, when they think about wanting to do something for themselves, there's usually like a thorn in their side. And for me, it was really not being able to control my time. And that was a really big pain point for me. You know, being told like when I had to go to work and when I can get off, and then if I can actually go to an event that I wanted to go to or take time off for vacation or family. So for me, it was really about being able to control my time that motivated me to want to go in that direction of entrepreneurship.
I love it. Everybody needs that motivation. Absolutely. So talk to us about how you got started.
Yeah, so actually, I run multiple YouTube channels right now, and before that, actually, a couple of years prior to like my real start date, I actually tested it out a couple of times, being on YouTube with other topics around niches that I kind of liked. Never ended up working out, so I was kind of in the video game niche back in like the early parts of YouTube. Then I did travel niche a little bit, and neither one of those kind of stuck, and so I gave up for a short period of time, and then I came back with personal finance. And that's really what stuck because that's honestly like my truest passion. And so May of 2017, I just got on a camera. And even with the prior experience of having done YouTube of some capacity, I was still very nervous, didn't know what I was doing, very, let's just say amateur as across the board with everything, audio, video, whatnot. And yeah, just, hit record and just started going at it. Definitely didn't know what I was doing. Like that was wholeheartedly the truth, and you can watch my old videos and it'll be very clear and apparent that I didn't know.
I love it. Me too. I want to go back and look at some of my early ones after this, just for some humility and some learning opportunity. When did you first realize that you could actually make a decent living doing what you're doing?
So that's a good question. I think I was just so gung-ho at not doing what I was still doing at the time that I was like, nothing else can work unless I put so much effort into this. But it definitely took some time to really see the fruits of my labor, especially in the early parts of YouTube. There weren't as many people talking about how to do YouTube in the realm of the space. There were a few, and I definitely watched them. And hearing their stories, kind of understanding like what is possible, got me excited for sure. But I definitely really saw the potential once I actually started earning some ad revenue from the platform. But that took 7 to 8 months, give or take, to really start generating something. And if I knew better, I probably could have done a little bit more early on to kind of build up a little bit more momentum, because income in the business is really important to sustain yourself. Because as much as we want to say we would do it for free, and I love saying that kind of stuff, but truthfully, like we can't sustain it if we're not making an income to live our lives.
Absolutely. What was the previous job? You mentioned it a couple of times. What were you doing before you went for YouTube?
I worked in retail for a while. I did the last job I had. I was pretty much a customer experience representative. So I pretty much helped my crews and my teams at the retail shops, engage with customers. I'm kind of a people person, you would say. You've met me in person, so you know this. So I love talking to people. And so with the last company I worked with, it was really all about engaging with the customers. And so I would train and develop our team members to be able to interact with those customers. And I loved the job, but it never ended up being exactly what I wanted. Because of course, corporations always, want to shift me or move me into whatever they feel is going to be best versus what I saw as the best potential. And so for me, I wanted to just do it all by myself. I didn't want anybody else to tell me again what to do, even if I saw the best potential moving forward.
I love that. Okay, so talk to us about the time where you said, "Okay, I'm gonna go for this YouTube thing," and bye bye to the
Oh,
customer experience manager.
yeah, that was a story, man. Like I remember. So it was about 2 years in, give or take, of doing YouTube. I started making a little bit of money on a regular basis. Like it was pretty incredible, right? Like I know you remember the first time you made a paycheck from YouTube or any other online platform that wasn't a job, and
Yeah.
you're just like, oh my gosh, this is and tantalizing. And so you keep doing it and you start building up a regular amount of income. And I got to a point where I wasn't exactly making the same amount of money as my day job, but I was moving up in the ranks, so to speak, with how much I was bringing in consistently. So it started being $200 a month, then 500, then close to $1,000 a month. And I was like, oh wow, like it's not there yet, but I could see the writing on the wall, so to speak. And I was actually in a truck with my dad. We were doing some landscaping at my house, and on the way back, I was talking to him about the idea of quitting my job. Now, quick side note: my parents own their own small business as well, and my dad had done like some truck driving and then some other things, and then now does entrepreneurship with my mom. And I remember the conversation we had because he at one point quit his job and had 5 kids and was able to like go for it, even though there was not like 100% certainty. And so he was the best person for me to talk to at this moment because he's experienced it with different adversities, right? And he told me something that I was like, okay, this makes sense. And I loved it. It always stuck with me. He's like, Dennis, he's like, I trust you that you will always take care of your family and that you will always make something work, regardless if you quit today or you quit 5 years from now. And so that really gave me a lot of motivation to say, well, yeah, if I quit my regular job and this isn't working out, like I will do everything it takes to make sure, there's food on the table, the bills get paid, everything in that realm. And so that conversation was the one that really pushed me over the edge to finally quit my job and go for entrepreneurship.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it definitely helps when you have examples as your parents too to say, "Wow, okay, whatever happens, ups and downs, they made it work. I'm doing fine as one of their children." So
Yeah.
this
And
this
and
go ahead.
they're not even so I'm first generation US. So like
Uh-huh.
they came into this country not even speaking the language and were able to make it work. So my like thought process is like, man, if they can come to this country, I have a leg up on them, right? Like I spoke the language pretty much since I was 5 years old, and I'm first generation here. I've had advantages that they didn't have. And so I'm like, I have nothing but all the reasons to succeed.
I love that. What a great example. That's so cool. So talk to me about solopreneurship. How has it changed your life? How is it different from your time in the corporate world?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and I'm going to go back to this a lot. And I think you know this from my podcast, is I talk a lot about like your time. I think time is the most valuable asset that we all have. It's all the same regardless of how much money you actually own. And so for me, it's all about how can I have control of my time? I want to be able to do the things I want to do. To be frank, I want to be able to wake up when I want to wake up and go to bed when I want to go to bed, because it's my control. And so for me, it's really all about being able to like have those things, and it's a lot of freedom for me. It's the idea that I get to work on the things that I find most passionate and things that I want to bring into the world, because that was another reason I ended up wanting to do entrepreneurship, is I didn't really feel like I was contributing in a way that was meaningful to me. And so I wanted to come into this space to be able to provide value. And my mom always taught me something growing up, was if I take care of other people, I'll always be okay. And so for me, I was like, how do I take care of other people by helping them understand their finances better? Because that's the niche that I kind of went into. And so for me, I just always come at it with, I just love making this content that really supports people in their journey through personal finance. And now I can do it at whatever capacity I want to, whatever caliber I want to, however I see fit. Nobody else is telling me what's going to be the best way, because as much as I love money and as much as I love making money, I don't necessarily need it to dictate what I'm doing. So if something I'm doing isn't necessarily profitable, but it's very impactful, I get to make that decision and I get to move with it as well.
I love that, man. I love that. Well, people are inspired listening to your story. Let's talk to them specifically about YouTube, since that's the way you do your solopreneur life. How much? Let's first of all, let's ask this question: how do you make money on YouTube? Because this is a question that people don't really understand. They see the videos, they see the ads. I guess they get that part, but talk to us about how you make money on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways. I've seen a lot of YouTube content creators make money in multitude of ways, but I think the general, you know, way to make money is through ad revenue. So when you hit a certain threshold on YouTube, you can earn ad revenue and you earn a portion of that. And so for me, I that's one way that I make money. You can also do affiliate marketing, which is essentially saying, "Hey, I'm going to recommend certain products, and if they sign up or they go through a certain tier of systems of, you know, buying a membership or anything like that, you get a certain portion of the sale." And there's also ways to make money based off of like working with sponsors, which I don't like to do personally because I feel like I'm going back to work. Um, and then probably one of my favorite ways to make money now on YouTube is licensing content. It's a little bit of work, but nothing as severe as sponsorship deals. And just as a heads up, so sponsorships is like a company comes to you, kind of dictates what they want to see out of your content, and a lot of people make really good money out of it. And I'm not like trying to trash it. I think it's a great way for a lot of people to make money. I just don't like being told what to do, and it's very clear because I'm just like, you have to pay me a lot of money to do that work. But the licensing content's more fascinating to me, and a lot of people don't talk about this, which is I've made content either because a company has asked me and I did work with them a long time ago, or I just wanted to make the content and they found it, or I've reached out to them and they ask if they can license the content for their ads or for their social media, to be able to actually, you know, promote the products that they have because of the way I showed up for it. And so I would license my content usually for 1 year at a time, and make, you know, royalties essentially from the content that I produced months and years ago.
That's great. So those are four different avenues that you can make money on YouTube. Any of them are any of them the bulk of your income of the four?
Yeah, so the ad revenue is the bulk, and that's mainly because of the niche that I'm in. So it's going to be really based off of how somebody shows up on YouTube and what they talk about. Because I'm not really like money hungry, so to speak. I'm kind of hit the area that I want to be in, which is my freedom and time. So I don't drive as hard as I would probably if I wasn't where I was at yet. And I know a lot of YouTubers make a bulk of their income from sponsorships. But again, because I don't want to live in that life, I don't advocate in that space. And if I did, I would probably overwhelmingly make more money from sponsorship deals. So I would say ad revenue is about 60%. Affiliate marketing is probably closer to like 35-40% ish. And then kind of rounding out the rest of it is the licensing. And if I ever do sponsorships, then those months will kind of leak into it a little bit with like
Got
maybe
it.
10% of the income.
Well, thanks for breaking that down. And I know you've been at it since 2017. Can you share what you're making on a monthly or annual basis right now?
Yeah, so I think on a just a normal month, I probably around like 10,000 is
That's
what we're bringing
awesome,
in.
man.
Yeah,
That's
but
great.
it's and there's a caveat to that, and I know you know this, so I just want to let your listeners know
Sure.
too. It's average 10,000. There are some months that can go a lot higher just based off of the niche and the time of the year, but a lot of that is actually passive. And I say that kindly because I know a lot of people talk about making passive income. It took years to get to that point. It wasn't instantaneous and it wasn't something I could just randomly do. But I had to put in effort and I had to put in work. And I still work. I still put in my time. But I would say the majority of what I bring in every single month is based off of content that I produced months and years ago. Like I have videos from 2021, 2022 that are bringing in the bulk of my income, and it's really cool. It's so different than what I hear a lot of other YouTubers and content creators talk about, which is they need to be relevant and up to date at the most recent time to even make anything feasible. And if they step back even for a moment, they're going to see their income collapse quite a bit. And so I never wanted to do that, and so I ended up going the route of what they call evergreen content that allows me to make this, you know, good set of income without having to sacrifice honestly my well-being, because I know I could make more and that's great, but I'm really content with where I'm at, and I love that freedom in my time, because if I want to make more, I had to give up more of that time. And maybe there's times in my life and moments where I'm going to sacrifice a little bit more time to, you know, bring in a little bit more. Maybe there's big goals that I want to achieve, but otherwise I can choose to scale back or scale forward just depending on the moment. So yeah.
Got it. So evergreen versus like something like, hey, I'm going to tell you the news today is
Yeah.
completely different because you're creating something that might last, like you said, years and then still earn you revenue for years, as opposed to minutes or moments as things would change. For example, if we're talking about any any of the tariff news or anything like that have happened this year, the real information on that has changed 4 times before the end of the day, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so as a creator, if you wanted to be relevant, you have to stay relevant, which means you have to keep making the news. And for a short time, that might work for a lot of people, and maybe it works for some people indefinitely. I've seen content creators that can do that, but I know from the back end and the content creators I've ever kind of been around, it can get really exhausting really quickly. And so I to be honest, I definitely stepped into evergreen content, not intentionally, because I didn't really understand it until I started to build out the content that I have. Because originally, when I started YouTube, I wanted to be not like a guru, but I just wanted to be somebody who people followed based off of how they use their finances, how they plan for the future, and how they save, invest, and all that. But over time, I learned that my content and the way I produce, people really resonate with education. And so I like to joke that every content piece I make, I always pretend like I'm talking to my mom, and that like if she needs help, that I'll be the one that helps her. And so, I think because of how I approach it, people are like, wow, this guy really understands that I don't understand this. And now, I pivoted over to Evergreen rather than, just being a personality. So to speak.
Got it. Yeah, I like that. Now, you mentioned the 10K number. Is this enough for you to live a comfortable life right now?
Honestly, yes.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't know. Some of your questions will probably be around like how I kind of structure my weeks. And so again, I think based off of what I'm making now, like I can choose how much I'm working. And if I needed more income for any particular reason, I can kind of put in more effort. But I've really learned the power of being content with where I'm at with my income, because I think there was a small portion of me early on where I sacrificed so much that I felt like maybe I did want to go for like the big numbers. And I was actually a little surprised too that once I kind of hit a really good stride in income wise, that I was like willing to let the foot off the gas, so to speak. I got to spend more time with like family and friends, do more things for my life. And so I'm glad that that was the case, because I think I've seen it happen to some people where all they cared about was just wanting to make more and more. Like I'll be fine with where I'm at for retirement, where I'm at right now with like income and spending and all these things, because I've one, care about finances, so like I know how to like manage my income based off of what I'm actually bringing in. So if my income goes down for a little bit, I know I can like be so fine with how I'm spending my money for food and gas and all this other stuff. Where as my money goes up, I don't really spend a lot more. I just tend to really like reinvest that for the future, as well as maybe the things that I do have a lot of passion for.
Got it. Well, let's talk about time, because you mentioned you're getting a lot of that back. What does a typical work week look like for you? And I guess now that you are your boss, how do you structure your schedule?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, being your own boss is a whole different ballgame than working for somebody else. And the motivation and the structure is something you have to set up yourself, right? Like, and I know you probably know this really well. Of like, if you don't set things up, like it's not going to happen. And so for me, I've definitely built out a really solid system of how I kind of approach work. So for me, I would say I typically work about maybe 3-4 days a week, just kind of really depending on the flow and what's working, what's not working. There's some weeks maybe I just end up skipping out because I'm not really wanting to make the content that time. And for me, I'm like, I'm at a point where I want to be so excited about making this content because I know it's going to help people, that if it's not this week, I can wait another week and things will be fine for me. So I would say the 3 days a week, I'm probably putting in like maybe 5-6 hours in that week or that day. And I usually structure it in sets of three. So I'll usually do like research and planning on one day. I'll do recording a whole separate day. And then on the third day, I'll usually do like the editing, the uploading, and the thumbnails for my content. So that's usually kind of the route I'll go. And I'll usually have a series of content. So for me, I can pump out anywhere from like 10 to 30 videos in that series for a week. And so that's kind of how it works out for me, because if I try to do everything one at a time, where I scheduled or researched one video, recorded one video, and edited one video, it would be very tedious in that process. And so for me, I found a really good flow that works to be able to be effective and longevity for my work.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you talked about your work week and how much you're making. It's fantastic. It seems like a really great life that you've built for yourself. Let's talk about the typical person maybe jumping into YouTube today. What can they expect to make? Let's help this be realistic for people, knowing that you have such an impressive story. Just want to set the baseline for people getting into it. Of course, you can build up to where you are, but what do you think somebody could make today doing YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, I think I personally have the belief that any niche on YouTube can make it full time. I think you just have to be definitely dedicated to the process, and it does take time. I will not lie and say, oh, you can make this in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months. Now, I would actually say it might be a year to 2 years to really see the fruits of your labor, and that is so difficult, especially if you are working a full time job like I did. I was also helping out another business in that process when I was doing it. So like it's a lot of work. And I think when I look back, I definitely sacrificed about I would say a year and a half of like friendships and like being around family and all this stuff to make it work. And I know that's not feasible for everybody. So I would say if I can show anybody else in this process without having to do all of that sacrifice, but still be able to get there, just know that it will take time. Like you do have to put in the effort. But I think the most powerful thing is the way I like to teach, right? Is going with evergreen content, which means you can make something today and then 6 years later somebody's still going to actually find it impactful. Focus on those because longevity is going to be the benefit of that, right? Versus trying to again talk about tariffs or talk about anything that's like so time sensitive that like you're going to have to stay up to date, and that's going to just be too much.
Absolutely. And with your advice earlier, something that helps people too. I mean, I can imagine the amount of YouTube videos where somebody is Googling or YouTubing how to fix their tail light on X specific model of car. Like those ones have the thousands and millions of views because
They
it's helpful
do.
and
Yeah.
you can do it, you know? So I mean that's the original. I guess I feel like that's original YouTube stuff, but it's like, hey, whatever your thing is that you really like. Would you
Mhm.
say if you're going to get into this, you got to really like the topic too, right?
You have to I don't know if you have to like it, but you have to be very knowledgeable on it,
Got it.
right? Because like my
Mhm.
thing would be, and by very knowledgeable, just enough to be one step ahead of the person behind you.
Mhm.
Because you could be, let's say I always bring up crocheting. I've never crocheted in my life, but like if you know how to crochet even just a little bit, you can help the person right before you on like the tools that you started out with, how you started learning, some of the best tips, maybe some issues like safety, like all of these things that you can do to teach somebody how to crochet and get the ball rolling for them. You're going to help that person's journey, and there's always going to be somebody new looking on how to crochet, right? And so for me, I like to tell people like I think evergreen content is like a secret that's like out in the open. Like people talk about it, but nobody actually really does it. So I think if somebody does go into this space, it's really important to stay niche. And I know it's hard for people. I know people don't want to do it. They're eclectic in their skills and what they want to talk about. But I think when you start off going very niche and then being more broad as you kind of build a coalition of viewership and like subscribers, then you can kind of break away a little bit from that. But I think YouTube likes to know very specifically who your audience is supposed to be so that they can go find those people for you. Because when you start off on your channel, you and I both know this, you're starting at zero pretty much, and you get to build out. And I think when you build out very specifically, it'll help.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think for so long on my YouTube channel, I was excited about talking about so many different things. I'm a
Mm.
dad. I would like to talk about parenting, but it's like, okay, how are you already talking about personal finance and investing? Now you want to talk about parenting? Then YouTube gets confused on what they want to send your way, and the viewers get confused too. It's like, what are we talking about on this channel? You know, so I've definitely
Exactly.
had to niche myself, and it's something you learn over the time, but. Dennis can definitely save you some time with this conversation today. All right, Dennis, I want to ask you 5 quick questions, which I call the Solopreneur High Five. These are short answers that help us to understand a little bit more about your solopreneur journey and maybe really help some folks out there with some tips and tricks as they're getting started or growing their solopreneur business. So the first question is, what is your favorite tool, app, or subscription that helps you stay a successful solopreneur?
That's a really good question because there's a couple of different tools that I love to use. One of the ones that I've been willing to admit that I needed for a long time but never did was Notion. If you ever used it, it's essentially just allows me to take everything out of my brain and put it on paper. And had I done it earlier in my process, I would have been a little bit easier. But I think at that point it was like 7 years in, and I started like actually like pouring out everything from my brain as far as like where all my links are, or like what all my affiliates are, the relationships I have with brands, scheduling, future video ideas, planning, like everything that I can do is now all in one section. So if I ever did want to bring either somebody on as a full-time hire, which is, could be in the future if I really wanted to, or even, these, part-timers to come in and help me outsource a little bit of the work, I have spaces for them to go and get the right information without always needing my brain, because I'm only one person. So having this kind of is it's like a little bit of an outsource of itself to be able to get support. So that one I would say is the biggest.
I love that. I've heard about Notion. I haven't used it, but I've created my own spreadsheet, but then it ends up getting a little messed up a little bit because it's not that organized. So maybe that's something I'll have to check out too.
Yeah.
All right. The second question, I know that you are a one-person business, but you may still outsource a bit. Are there any ways that you outsource right now, and if at all?
Yeah. So with the outsourcing, I currently had somebody come in and support me in my business. And I like to use the word outsourcing. I did look at the possibility of hiring them at one point, but I think outsourcing really benefits in the context of like they come in for a short time and help out. The person I had for a while there was actually somebody that came in, helped take care of my emails, reach out to brands, ask for pay increases with affiliates, and took care of a lot of that kind of work to be able to kind of ease me up on having to deal with like, I don't want to say nuance because it sounds kind of bad, but the nuance of the business, right? Which is like the things that I didn't really want to pay attention to, but needed to pay attention to keep the business thriving. I know for a lot of people, outsourcing, editing or thumbnails is also really valuable. And I do encourage that if that's maybe not your forte. But definitely for me, I think outsourcing the little things in between with the emails was huge.
Got it. Yeah, like a virtual assistant, somebody to support. And it doesn't even have to be all the time, right? It could be for a period of time to get ramped up and then go off from there. So that's great. The third question, what is the worst mistake you've made on your solopreneur journey so far?
Oh, many. I mean,
you got to pick one. You got to pick one.
I got to pick one. The worst mistake I would say was, oh man, it's funny. I would say for me, the worst mistake was not niching down sooner, because as much as I went into this, like I said earlier, I'm in personal finance. I thought being in personal finance was already a niche, and I got to tell you that's not the case. And so not niching down sooner, I think, held me back from new opportunities to continue to go faster. Because once I did, and I'll give you a little bit of brief context here. I went from being a personal finance YouTube channel, and then when I was transitioning into tutorials, like I was teaching people how to use personal finance apps with investing and banking. There was a transition period, and I literally, I think for like 2 months, like complained about it with my entrepreneur friends for just weeks about like not wanting to do that transition. Like I actually had like an ego for that. So I was trying to hold on to my ego on what I thought I was supposed to do versus what was showing up that I was really good at. And so I think my biggest mistake was allowing my ego to really just take front and center, and not allowing what worked best and how people approached me and saw me and got value from me to be the winner. Because once I did that transition, I pushed my ego aside. I cried a little bit. Don't get me wrong. Actually, I cried a lot. Not gonna lie. I pushed that ego aside. And once I did that, then I was able to really succeed. And I saw so much growth that I've never thought possible, only because I gave that side up. But had I continued to hold on, I think that would have exacerbated that mistake to let my ego take front and center.
Got it. Yeah, listen to the data, right? It seems like that helped you quite a bit. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, the fourth one. When you're not working on your business, what is something that you enjoy doing outside of YouTube?
Yeah, so because I have the freedom of time and my ability to do what I want when I want, one of the things I've been really passionate about lately is supporting a nonprofit. So I became a treasurer of a nonprofit, and I can give a little bit of that time over to them as well. And we support multi-choice mobility in our city here in Phoenix. And so for me, I'm so passionate about people having choice in how they get around the city. So whether it's biking, walking, light rail, or even their cars, like anything that we can do to give people options and freedom, I think gives them a lot more flexibility. And it still kind of hits me at my core, which is, if somebody can't afford a car, they're going to have the ability to take light rail and save a lot of money as well too. So just because I can drive a car and I like going that route, like doesn't mean somebody else doesn't want to, have a different choice. And so that's been a huge passion project. I also love going out and exploring the world. Going to concerts has been huge over the last 2 years as well too. I've gone to probably too many concerts. I do need some support there. But yeah, just getting to spend time with family as well, and of course friends, has been really nice. And I have again that freedom.
I love that, man. That's great. All right, our last question. Now that you really enjoy your work and you're not working in the corporate world, what does retirement mean to you now?
That's a great question. Not that I don't think I would ever retire. I don't think I would ever stop wanting to do things in my life. I think what I'm setting up myself up for in the quote unquote retirement years would just be a continuation of having the choice of what I want to do. So whether in, 40 years from now or whatever, I want to be more passionate about certain things in my life, I'll have the ability to do those things, whether it's working with nonprofits and, not necessarily making any money, but making impact. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for me. So getting my feet wet now in the nonprofit world has been pretty interesting. And I think that's going to be a continuation moving forward. And I wouldn't be able to be doing those things had I not been able to get to where I'm at today.
I love that. Yeah, you've opened up your schedule to allow for a broader life, a diversified identity, a life for Denis. This is very cool. So people are listening to your story, Denis, today, and they see that you're making $10,000 a month as a YouTuber. They're super inspired. What is one piece of advice that you would leave with them as we close out this interview?
Stick with it. If it doesn't seem like it's working, but you're putting in the effort, you're improving. There's a word Kaizen I love to use all the time, which is improving 1% at a time. If you're doing those two things, stick with it, even if it doesn't seem like it's going through, because you just don't know where you're going to be at to be able to make that next move. And I think for a lot of people, we quit really early in the process. And guess what? Even if YouTube doesn't work out, but you stick with it just a little bit longer than you were originally planning to, you might gain so many new skills that can be useful in any other context. But most likely, you will break through what most people can't in that process of YouTube. So I truly believe it. Maybe it's not for everybody, right? I get to be honest about that. But I think for a lot of people, I see them quit so early that they don't get to really see the true possibilities of the platform, because they look at, views and subscribers rather than impact. And I think once they do that and they continue doing their work, they're going to have a lot more success.
Absolutely. Well, this is some great advice, Denis. I know you are giving a lot of great advice on your podcast and through your other channels. Where can people connect with you if they want to learn more from you or just subscribe to your channels?
Yeah, I mean, I got too many channels to go over here, but the two that I would probably say, if you want to check out the main channel, which is where I kind of derive a lot of this opportunity from, that's called True Financials. You can misspell it and you'll still find me. And then the other one there is going to be YouTube Passive Income. Is a podcast that I run that I actually teach people how to do this. You and I have talked a little bit about that too, where I help people that want to potentially get into YouTube, but from the Evergreen perspective, from search engine perspective, because I want longevity. And so if people want to check out the podcast, they're definitely welcome to. We got a huge library of content that they can go through and listen and learn to be able to make this a sustainable process for them, to be able to make either passive income or active income, but at least more than maybe what they're making at their regular jobs. And in that resource settings from the YouTube Passive Income, I do channel audits. So if people wanted to be running their YouTube channel for a little bit, they can come and contact me. And I'm a numbers guy. So I can see somebody's analytics and it's like a painting for me. So I can let people know kind of what direction is working or not working for them once they kind of gotten into the rhythm of being on YouTube.
If you're a new YouTuber, check out the podcast. If you're an existing YouTuber, get one of these audits, because I think it's going to be very helpful. I think I will be looking into that myself, Denis. Thank you very much for your time today. And thank you for inspiring us on your journey, man. Thank you.
Thank you.